Good evening, everybody. Welcome once again to Spinistry Live. I am your host, Kevin Lee of Spinistry. Tonight, we're going to go over some of the route details for Sunday's glorious ride in Paris, Texas, the Hell of the North, Texas, which is held in conjunction with the Tour de Paris weekend, Tour de Paris Road Rally on Saturday and Hell of the North, Texas on Sunday. And we're also going to talk about some Club Spinistry details and information. I know that gets confusing for folks, how that works and what's the benefit and so forth. So we'll talk about that some, definitely as it relates to Hell of the North, Texas, specifically in our events, but some of the other things associated with that as well. Again, since we're doing this as a screen share live cast, I'm not able to see comments on the live cast thread. So if something comes up while you're watching this live, or if you have a question specifically about Club Spinistry, when we talk about that a little bit down the road, feel free to send an email, spinistry@gmail.com. Also, we will be downloading this from Facebook Live and stripping out the audio and uploading it as a podcast as well. So if you're listening to this on iTunes or Google Podcasts or Stitcher or whatever else, somewhere down the road, even if it's post-event, just feel free to always send an email to spinistry@gmail.com if you have things that you think might be worth discussing in a podcast or a live cast or something along those lines, or if you just want to have a private conversation and get some things cleared up, I'm happy to communicate as well. Again, spinistry@gmail.com is the best email address for that. And we're just going to go ahead and real quickly do the big global overview of the Hell of the North Texas routes and how they work and what to look for and what to expect. We do this route specifically because it's towards the end of July, second half of July in Texas, when it's typically hot. So we lay this route out accordingly. I'll go into a little bit more detail along those lines, but the gist of it is, if there's shade to be had, we go and find it. And that's a pretty cool and unique feature of this particular route. Another cool and unique feature of this particular route, since it is held in conjunction with Tour de Paris weekend, Paris, Lamar County Chamber of Commerce, the Tour de Paris folks, they're bending over backwards. They were really stoked by how successful the gravel grinder was last year. They're excited for it this year as well. So what we actually have, we had a taste of it last year. We had some real deal manned rest stops, aid stations, kind of like the road rallies do, which I think everyone that's done gravel grinders would admit that's a rarity. And our partners, our support crew, are stepping that up a notch, and we're going to have at least 3, maybe more, but at least 3 fully manned and stocked and ready to go rest stops and aid stations for this year. And we'll go into a little bit of detail on that shortly. Just glancing at my email real quick to see if any emails may have come through. So this is the overview map that shows all of the routes linked together. This year we do have a 40-mile route, which is now highlighted in black, a 70-mile route, which is now highlighted in black, and then finally the full-on 100-mile route, which is highlighted in black. So I'll keep that one highlighted at the moment. And if you see those other colors, those are where the other routes shortcut the 100-mile. But where you don't see those cut-throughs, we make a point to share as much of the routes with each other as possible. As we go over each route individually in the details around them. We'll point out those differences where each route may differentiate from the others, and we try to share aid stations with each route and things like that. So we think this works out really, really well. Anybody that did last year's routes, current plan is to do exactly the same routes again. Now, I say that the routes we expect to be the same routes as far as which roads that you go on, but when I was up there a few weeks ago scouting the routes to verify that the roads were still there and all the bridges were up and all that good stuff, because there's been a lot of rain in the past 12 months, this will be a significantly different ride from last year. The routes are the same and the shade's the same, if not better. But we'll go into more detail on that shortly. So here's the again the overview. But what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go ahead and go to the 40-mile map. We'll bring that one up individually. Even if you're not doing the 40-miler, though, pay attention. We're going to start with the 40-miler, then we'll do the 70-miler, then we'll do the 100-miler details. But even if you're doing the 70 and 100-miler, pay attention to this 40-mile route, because we're going to talk about things that are common for all of the routes, particularly around parking and restrooms, check-in, things like that, how the event's going to start, how it's going to finish, all that good stuff as well. And I will take this moment to just do a quick, since we're talking about Club Spinistry as well, and we'll go into more details after we talk about the routes, but just the basics of how it is beneficial for people that aren't up to speed with Club Spinistry and what it's all about and things like that. It's really the best way to think of it. It's kind of along the lines of an Amazon Prime membership. You can buy stuff off of Amazon and you don't have to have an Amazon Prime membership, but if you do have that membership, that annual membership with Amazon Prime, you get a lot of other benefits with the stuff you do in association with Amazon. So probably the simplest benefit to mention to folks, there's a lot more of them, and we'll go into that in more depth after we talk about the routes. But the most basic one is discounts on all of the Spinistry events. And typically that discount is at least 25%. Sometimes it's even more, and sometimes it even qualifies for a free event as well. But generally speaking, just it's Club Spinistry membership is $75 a year. Realistically, if you don't take into account any of the other benefits we throw into the mix, if you do 3 or 4 gravel grinders with us a year, you're probably going to get your money's worth from the club membership, let alone if you take advantage of some of our partner discounts, some of our exclusive events, and other things that we'll talk about later. But that's the snapshot. That's the easiest view of it. It's kind of like, why join Amazon Prime? Well, it's free 2-day shipping. Okay, that's pretty cool. And then you find out, oh, hey, I get this movie service as well, and music and books and picture storage and other sorts of stuff that comes along with Amazon Prime. But a lot of people get it just, hey, free 2-day shipping. That's cool. Well, Club Spinistry, discounts on all your Spinistry events. That's pretty cool. So in this case, for Hell of the North Texas, if you have your Club Spinistry membership, it will save you 25% on the entry fee. It recognizes that you're a club member at registration. It'll still show the full price on the page when you go to register, but once you go to checkout, you'll see where it automatically applies the Club Spinistry discount. And so we think that's pretty cool. Anyone that has any other questions about Club Spinistry membership, feel free to send an email again to spinistry@gmail.com. If you're paying attention live, and I can possibly address it during this live cast, or just add comments if you're watching this after the fact. And as I get notifications of comments being added to the video feed, I will be more than happy to answer them at that time. So let's go ahead and go into a little bit of detail on the 40-mile route, but what's also common for staging and parking and everything else for all of the routes. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in fairly tight to where we're staging from, starting from, and all that good stuff, we'll actually go ahead and go into the aerial satellite view. And this is the Love Civic Center in Paris. As you can see, there is plenty of parking here. Another important fact is, yes, it is air conditioned. So even though we're starting early in the morning, and even though we're sending you on as much of a shaded route as possible, we do recognize it is July in Texas. You get back for your cold drinks and snacks and whatever else, awards and all that good stuff, it's probably going to be getting a little bit warm. Hey, we've got indoor air conditioning for you, which that's pretty cool there. Real restrooms. You don't have to worry about porta-johns. There is, I believe it's first come, first serve. That's the way they did it last year. There are RV spots back here, RV hookups that are available. So if you come up in an RV, there are hookups available here. If you're coming up for the full weekend to do the Tour de Paris and Hell of the North Texas, there's a good chance there will be a Friday night. This may very well be a first come, first serve with people that are coming for the Tour de Paris rally. If you're just coming up for Hell of the North Texas, it's highly likely that there will be spots open here. And I know you can also park. I don't think there's hookups here. Maybe there are. But you can park. They let people park their RVs and overnight nose to tail through here last year as well. Again, we will have check-in at the main door area here. And restrooms are inside. Once I believe 10:30 is when we have access to the conference room and kitchen and stuff like that. So we'll have iced down drinks, including from our partner sponsor Bell's Beers. Something to look forward to there. And that'll all be waiting on everyone. And this finishing section here, actually, this map isn't quite accurate. It automatically followed the trail. This pavilion area here, just north of the Civic Center, that's where the Northeast Texas Paved Trail feeds in. And we're actually going to have folks finish through the pavilion here. And this is where the timing arch will be set up. Even if you're not racing, even if you DNF or change routes or whatever else, we do need everyone to come in through the pavilion here and go through our timing setup. That way we know when folks are off the course. So that's the only way to check in. It'll be very difficult for us because there'll be a lot going on all weekend. So we won't know whose cars are whose in the parking lot here. So we won't be able to do our traditional count cars at the end of the day because there'll be other people in conjunction with the Civic Center that are parked there and things like that. People visiting the Eiffel Tower. If you haven't seen the Paris, Texas Eiffel Tower, it's pretty cool. You'll want to come up and see that. So that's our staging area. That's our finish area. That's our after party area, all that good stuff. We'll be doing awards here, all that good stuff. And the way we'll be starting in the morning for the 40-mile route, we are scheduled for an 8 a.m. start for the 40 and 70-mile routes. 100-milers will be starting at 7 a.m. to try to stay ahead of the heat as much as possible. Checking my email one more time. No messages yet. No burning questions for anyone. So we'll all gather here in the morning for the two main groups that start at 8 o'clock. 100-milers, we'll talk about your specifics shortly. We'll gather in front of the Eiffel Tower here. That's where we'll have our riders meeting. Then we'll guide everybody as a neutral group down South Collegiate. And then we'll hang out here at the intersection with Southeast Loop 286. We will get Paris Police Department to manage the intersection, and then we'll start everybody as a group once they give us the green light or the blue lights or whatever it is that they give us as the indication to go. So this is the 40-mile route here specifically that we're going to look at. And we'll show how that goes. And realistically, it's not too far into here. Let's go ahead and go back to the overview real quickly. I think it's not too far. That's still paved there. I just want to see how far into the route. It's actually not paved there. I know it's not. It was looking like pavement. But I think it's, yeah, probably here is where the dirt starts. So that's about 2.5 miles in. So it doesn't take long before we hit gravel on this route. Wind around through here. This is all gravel. And the 40-mile route will be marked. So we will have Spinistry arrows at each turn. Not necessarily at every intersection, though. And we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail during the riders' meeting. And basically, right here at about mile 11, this is where the 40-mile route splits off from the longer routes. The longer routes will actually go west here at County Road 13680. The 40-mile route will go east at this point. And this stretch here, that's a pavement stretch. And this is probably for the 40 milers, I want to say this is probably the only stretch that doesn't have any shade, so to speak, because it is a paved section. But that's also going to be pretty early in the day. What mileage is that? So about mile 13 points. So about mile 14, 3 miles from mile 11 to 14 is unshaded, but that should still be before 9 o'clock for most, definitely 9:30, even if we get a little bit of a late start for any reason. So should be well before the heat of the day. And we'll also look at the weather forecast as well. Not looking too shabby at the moment. I know it's a little early to put any stock in that. So this will go back into the woods here. And I believe that's also where it joins back up with the longer routes as well. And then for the 40 milers, your first aid station will be in Pattonville. And I believe Gear Down Bikes will be manning this one again. They did last year as well. And since we're using the same routes as last year, this is just last year's map. So it shows Gear Down Bikes, and I think the Paris Gear Down Bikes will be manning this aid station again this year as well. And so that's what's the mileage on that? Again, this is for the 40 milers. So right at the halfway point, 19.5 miles in. Manned aid station with all sorts of goodies there. Follow the marked routes. This is a neat little section here. And then this is pretty cool. This is from Pattonville to Blossom. That's a really nice ride. You get another little pavement stretch here going into Blossom. And you're actually going to have another aid station at the Blossom City Park. About mile 31, 32. But what's really neat, if you haven't been up here yet, this is actually where it picks up the Northeast Texas Trail and takes the Northeast Texas Trail all the way from Blossom basically to the finish. A lot of it's going to be paved. Some of it's going to be not gravel, but like cinder trail. At least the last time I was there, they're always adding to this trail. So it may even be paved all the way to Blossom. I know technically speaking that doesn't make for a gravel grinder, but I can assure you last year everybody that rode this finishing section really, really enjoyed it. It's a great way to finish a bike ride. Just this gorgeous dedicated rails to trail with full canopy almost the entire way. A few intersections you cross. This is the busiest one, but there's actually an overpass bridge. That's kind of cool. And then you go all the way into Paris. And this is the trails to Paris here. And then you'll wind down to that finish area. So that's the 40-mile route there. Real quickly, check my email, see if I missed any messages. Nothing related to this discussion, so that's pretty cool. We'll go ahead and look at the 70-mile route. Again, it starts at the same time as the 40-mile route, 8 a.m. start. Riders meeting will be approximately 7:45. Check in earlier than that. We'll send out detailed event day notes, email and notes on Saturday, most likely. Once we do verify and finalize the routes, once they're marked, the routes have been verified except for one small section on the 100-miler. I'll talk about that. I don't expect there to be any issues. I don't expect there to be any changes to the routes. But crazy things have happened in the past, unexpected road closures or whatever else. So we never consider our routes final until they're marked the day before, particularly with dirt road routes. The unexpected can happen. Anyone that's a registered rider, I'll be sending out an email tonight after I sign off from this live cast with preliminary routes for everybody. I highly encourage you, though, to not download those to your navigation devices just yet. Wait for final verification on Saturday. If you're not able to wait, that's understandable, but we always encourage folks to wait until the last minute to download the routes if at all possible, just in case there ends up being a slight change. But going back to the 70-mile route, so here was that 11-mile split. Again, the 40-milers on this 3426, they went this way, and that's where they meet up with the other routes. The longer routes go west through here, through Yardstown, Glory. This is some really, really pretty stuff. We will have another manned aid station here at about mile 22 and a half. And this will probably be an unmanned aid station here. This will probably just be water tables. It's a pretty spot across from the cemetery. And I apologize. I have a dog that's grumbling at me. I may have to take a quick break and find a way to hush her up. I'm not sure what she's grumbling at. She should have food and water and your doors open, sassy princess. I'm Facebooking live, okay? Shush. All right, so at mile 33.7, there'll be a water table there, possibly some snacks. And then again, the 70-milers at mile 48.7 will go into Pattonville and do that geared down stop there. And then they'll also wind up towards Blossom and use that stop for the 70-milers, which will be at mile 60.7. Yes, we recognize 70 miles is a long 100K, but the reality is with this nice, straight, flat finish, and it is a flat route in general. When we go over the 100-milers, we'll illustrate that pretty well. 70 miles is not it's not too much of a stretch. And same with the 40-milers. If you were looking for a traditional 32 to 35 mile 50K route, 40 miles really isn't pushing it too hard. Now, I do want to use the 70-mile route. I'll go ahead to the satellite view here. I don't know if it shows it as well this year. And unfortunately, it really doesn't. But if we zoom in a little tighter, you start to see it. So, yeah, the trees weren't all flushed out when this overhead was taken. Like last year, it must have been taken in the middle of the growth season, in the middle of summer. So you could really see how much canopy there was and how the route was going. Like all of this is canopied forest area like this. but it's pretty thin, and yeah, you can see where it hasn't. So the trees aren't filled in, so it doesn't illustrate it as well as last year, but we actually built the route around the aerial photographs showing where all the green sections were. So it doesn't illustrate it as well, but this is almost all canopy road through probably 75% of this route. I don't want to imply it's like riding through a cave by any means, but it's not wide open blazing sun roads. There's a lot of shade, a lot of canopy to ride under. Here's what's crazy about it. It goes beyond canopy though. This is these particularly from this Bardstown area to Pattonville. All of this on the 70-mile route and the 100-mile route. This is these are narrow roads. You can't call them 2-lane, maybe lane and a half wide. Dirt roads, some of them are paved-ish, but even the paved roads are probably rougher than the dirt roads, so calling them paved is mighty generous. These are very, very, very tight and twisty roads. It's almost like riding single track. And well, now this is probably a good segue to talk about how this year's route is tremendously different from last year's route, at least when I was on it a few weeks ago verifying the routes. This is the overgrowth in the canopy is all there. It's very tight. When I was there a few weeks ago, it was growing in that it hadn't been trimmed. So it's almost like riding single track, but where it goes to that next level, I talked about all the rain that they had in the area over the past 12 months. Bridges are there. There's no roads closed, at least last time I was there or anything like that. But I will admit, the roads are a lot rougher this year than they were last year. Last year, I wouldn't call it groomed, but they were pretty flat. They were pretty well packed with a nice, even gravel. So you could really fly on it. And you can still fly on it, but some of these roads are pretty rough. I mean, not mountain bike racing rough by any stretch of the imagination. Not a farm road through a field rough, but it's this will not be road bike appropriate. And to be perfectly honest with you, for those that are racing, a drop bar gravel bike's probably if you're really racing it, that's probably the right way to go. But folks with mountain bike skills are probably bike handling will come into play, particularly on the racing side of things. Again, it's tight, it's twisty. There are some rougher sections to plow through. If there's somebody that's wanting to have a long mountain bike ride in the heat of summer, where they're actually getting 70 miles of riding continuous in, even mountain bikers that traditionally go, I ain't got no use for no gravel, that seems boring to me. I think mountain bikers that want a real endurance ride, a mountain bike marathon, I think they will have a really, really good time on this route. And I say that my roots are from the mountain biking side. I'm not a roadie that went gravel. I'm a mountain biker that went gravel. So I would not have any problem going out and having fun on a hardtail 29er on this route by any stretch. So that's the 70-miler there. And let's go ahead and take a quick glance at the 100-miler. So the one thing I want to do a little bit different on this 100-mile route, 101.5, but I just wanted to show how flat this really is. But I also want to reinforce, even though it's flat, it is not dull. This is going to be a fun bicycle ride. And when you look at this wider shot on the 100-mile, you can really see how many twists and turns we've got packed into this thing. The 100-miler route, this section over here, this is where you split off from the shorter routes. Actually, I think it's over here. I think everything from here on and then back into Blossom. This is a really, really neat section, 100 milers. Some really neat stuff here. Here's the one thing I don't believe I verified, and I will be checking on this Saturday. I don't expect there to be any issues, but this little section for the 100 milers here, I missed this when I was verifying the routes when I was up there a few weeks ago. I did the 70-mile cut up here because I actually had to get up to Paris for a meeting, and I did come all the way back to here, but I'm 99% sure I didn't check out this Cunningham stuff. I expect it to be fine, but as of the moment, this part has not been re-verified for this year yet, so I will definitely get that checked out on Saturday. Again, I don't expect any issues, but just in case. So it's for the 100 milers that we actually really have this unmanned water table here. Realistically, 100 milers, this aid station probably won't be there for you. This is going to be a manned aid station, but that's only 22 miles in, and that will be before, you'll probably be getting there just after the main group starts. And this will be a manned station, but that 22 miles probably won't be there for the 100 milers. But this water table will be waiting on you at mile 39 for the 100 milers. Also, 100 milers, please note, you are considered self-navigated, okay? Where the 100-mile route differs from the 70-mile route, there will not be Spinistry arrows. Like this little leg through here, there will not be Spinistry arrows here. We kind of use that as a skills hurdle for our 100 milers. If you're attempting our 100-mile routes, we expect you to be self-sufficient and know how to navigate. Even if you don't have a GPS device, at least know how to download the cue sheets and PDF files for paper maps if that's your choice. We don't provide the paper copies ourselves on site, but the routes link I'm sending out, if you want to download paper maps or cue sheets or whatever else, you can do that. For all of our riders, the routes map I send out tonight will also include a link to the Ride with GPS premium services for the app, where you for this event you can use their navigation services, which usually have a cost associated with them, but it's free with the Spinistry events and Spinistry routes and things like that. There's another big benefit that a lot of people may not be aware of on the Club Spinistry side of things. As a Club Spinistry member, you get access to our full Ride with GPS routes library, which also includes the Ride with GPS app navigation for those routes as well. We'll talk about that a little bit more here shortly. So again, 100 milers, consider yourselves self-navigated. We'll talk about your start here momentarily. 7 a.m. start for the 100 milers, not 8 a.m. You probably will not have this aid station at Rockford Church, Rockford Cemetery here. But there will definitely, at least at mile 40, be the water tables here. Definitely by the time you get to Pattonville, which for the 100 milers is mile 54, that will be a manned aid station. And then somewhere around Detroit, this will most likely be an unmanned one as well. Not sure of the exact spot. When I send out final notes on Saturday, I'll let 100 milers know the exact spot. Somewhere around Detroit, around mile 73, 74, somewhere in here will be a water table as well. Doubtful that it will be manned. Last year we had it right here, and I guess the intersection, there was just too much going on and people didn't see the water table there. They were watching for traffic or whatever else. So we're probably going to try to find a little bit better spot for it. But right here around the city of Detroit, if you need to, there is a convenience store just west down 82 that is open on Sundays. There used to be a grocery store in town, but I think the last time I went through there. It looked like the grocery store was closed, but I think it was even closed on Sundays regardless. But the convenience store here at about miles, again, that would be about 75 miles in. If you need a convenience store more than just a water table, there's one there. Then you'll wind yourself back to Blossom, and there's a convenience store here as well, right on the route in this case, and that's at what is that? About mile 92, 93. Here at Dan's Shed is where the aid station will be in Blossom City Park. For the 100 milers, there will at least be a table and water jugs there. It may still be manned. That may be a little late in the day, particularly for slower 100 milers, but there will be stuff there if there aren't people there. It may be an unmanned aid station at that point. Depends on our Chamber of Commerce volunteers. I know last year they stuck it out to the end. They may this year as well. There will be amenities of some sort, and then you'll have that nice coast in on the net trail finish for the 100 milers. And again, finish through the pavilion here. That's where the timing arch will be. And for the 100 milers, we will definitely, the conference room itself might be closed, but we'll still have cold drinks and snacks and restrooms and the atrium area there to cool down in. Not a problem. Also 100 milers, we'll have our riders meeting in front of the Eiffel Tower as well, probably 6:45-ish, rolling at 7, but instead of a neutral escorted start, I don't expect there to be more than a dozen 100 milers. And again, our 100 milers are usually pretty tough and self-sufficient, and it'll be that much earlier in the morning. We won't need police escort across the intersection. I will ask that the 100 milers, if you're feeling racy, you still have a neutral start to this intersection, and then once you get past the intersection, then you can start racing. Again, we'll talk more in depth during the riders meeting on Sunday morning. Again, important notes for the 100 milers that are a little bit different. Consider yourselves self-navigated. Yes, the parts of the route that are shared with the 70 milers, there will be arrows there, but where it's unique to the 100 milers, there will not be Spinistry arrows. Consider that first aid station for the others, which is about mile 22, will most likely not be in place. So 100 milers, first water will probably be at mile, what was that again? 38.9, about mile 39, first water. And 100 milers, you will be starting at 7 a.m., not 8 a.m. So again, we're about to just go into a little bit of discussion and detail around Club Spinistry. If anyone has any route questions, or if I missed something or was slightly confusing on any of that, you have time to send a quick email, spinistry@gmail.com. I can address it at that time. We'll look at the overview map one more time. This is how all the routes are shared. Again, there's the 40 miler outlined in black by itself. There's the 70 miler outlined in black. And then the full 100 miler outlined in black. And now we'll go ahead and talk a little bit more, just a quick overview of Club Spinistry. We'll probably do a dedicated live cast / podcast / discussion on Club Spinistry in the next week or so. I know lots of people have questions about it, need more details, and that's on us. That's on me. I need to do a better job of sharing this information, so that's part of why I'm talking about it now. It is very, very difficult to get all of the information out there on a website, that I'll be perfectly honest with you. Everybody digests information differently. We can put it all on a website, but if you navigate a website in a different way than somebody else, maybe we have this piece of information hidden away where you'll never find it. We can send it out in emails, but I know the reality is if I send out an email that's more than 2 or 3 sentences long, 98% of y'all don't read past that second sentence. And I also know not everybody's listening to this at the moment as well. So I might only be talking to 2 or 3 people at the moment. One of them is my noisy dog that won't stop grumbling. But Club Spinistry, again, $75 a year, and it's 12 months from when you sign up. It's not a January 1st to December 31st or anything like that. $75 for a year for an individual, $100 a year for a family up to 4. But that is a true family in the same household, and we don't want people playing games with that and saying that my friend that lives 3 counties over is really my long-lost cousin or something. Please don't do that to us, okay? We've added the family membership this year because we wanted to encourage folks to, have their significant others and spouses and children join us and stuff like that. And here's the big deal on the Club Spinistry stuff that we really want to expand on, and we've started doing a lot of it this summer. We've done it a lot over the years, but this is actually going to be a serious focus for Club Spinistry going forward. We're particularly our overnight and point-to-point and bike packing type stuff. Don't get scared off by that. When I say that, I'm not talking about people that are doing 150 miles a day. We're going to put together a lot of group weekends that are shorter distances and that are meant to get people, to trying out multi-day events, try out some bike packing or overnighting at state parks and things like that. Those types of events that we're going to be doing are going to be they're only going to be for club members. It's lots of details around it, but basically when you join the club, that gets you our club insurance for club events and things like that. And there's other pieces that are similar to that tie into it. It gives us flexibility with hosts like the state parks, National Forest Service, BLM lands, things like that. It gives us some flexibility in that range when we're catering to our club members specifically and not a general public event. So we're going to be doing a lot of those types of events and functions. As many of them as possible, quite frankly, we're going to do when viable at no cost, or where you just pay your own state park entry fee or whatever else. But if we have to make arrangements where we have to rent a bunkhouse or cabins or things like that, we're just taking those costs and spreading them out amongst the members. That's our Club Spinistry AC Adventure Weekend we did a few weeks ago is an example of that. Our Mule Train Gravel Adventure up in Colorado a couple weeks ago, those are club events where, yes, we charged members a fee to enter that, but that was just taking the costs of the rentals and things like that and spreading it out amongst everyone, and we just coordinated that on our end. So that's going to be a big benefit. It's already been a big benefit in my opinion for club members, but we're really going to focus on that going forward, and it's something I've been playing with for the past couple years, how to balance these things, because the reality is my business week, for lack of a better term, is Saturday and Sunday. That's when I'm able to cater to you guys, our customers, our audience, and things like that, and do things for you, because that's when you guys are able to come out and do our rides. And basically I'm shooting to fill up almost every weekend to provide opportunities for you guys to go out and have an adventure one way or another. Played with it for the past couple years. It's like, well, I mean, we can't do a gravel grinder every weekend, and we can't realistically expect 100 people to come out for a bike packing trip or anything like that. So the idea is, and we also know club members aren't in a position to go out for every weekend and do every event every weekend that we have. The reality is, yes, our open to the public gravel grinders, those aren't going away, but we're probably not going to be adding any more of those, or very few of them. And I'm not looking to get more 200 and 300 person events. That's not what we're trying to do. We want to grow the membership base and give you more opportunities to do these more intimate functions and bigger adventures, but spread out over a longer time frame and a longer distance frame. So like I said, there's probably a lot of multi-day stuff, a lot of point-to-point stuff. It's going to entail support on our end, where we're basically a rolling aid station. We did that with the AC Adventure. I think that worked really well. Anybody that was at the AC Adventure probably has a pretty good idea of, the general gist of what we have in mind along those lines. We even kind of did it for the Trinidad Adventure, and that was definitely an adventure. We just had a crazy storm that things worked out really well. They could have gone the other direction, but things worked out really well. But it's also one of those things that it worked out really well because instead of having 150 or 200 people out there in this crazy storm, we had 15 people, and everybody kind of knew the game plan of where to go and what to do, and we were able to meet up with them. So that all worked out really well. So there are other benefits associated with Club Spinistry. We'll talk about those when we go in depth on it, but the thing I wanted to bring up tonight was really plant that seed about these club weekends that we're going to be doing on an extremely, extremely regular basis. And some of them will be very free, very casual free events. Like I said, maybe you have a state park entry fee if you don't have a state parks pass. There's probably going to be some levee riding and tacos and beer in the mix along the way as well. But we're also going to be doing some full-blown adventure stuff that's just open to club members. We'll be going back to Colorado in August for a whole week with just this. We'll do another podcast shortly, but if somebody's looking for a real challenge, we've got one for you in August for our over-the-top event. But then in September, when we've added a new one to the mix out of Black Mesa State Park, a full weekend there that's going to be really cool. But the intention isn't to turn these into big gravel grinder events where we're trying to get hundreds of people or anything like that. The idea is to be a lot more intimate than that. We'll be doing a lot of stuff around bike packing. Whenever it fits into her schedule, Jan Bennett's going to be joining us and offering her tips and advice and things like that. And we think it's a really good opportunity for people that are bike packing curious to just put their toe in the water and get a sense of what it's about if they want to do it on a more cautious approach, but give everyone the flexibility. If they want to go full on bike packing, you can join us for that weekend and do the bike packing thing as well. So all that said, I've been rambling for a while. The dog is going nuts. I got to do something to take care of her. Again, feel free to send an email, spinistry@gmail.com, or comments here on the video itself. And please do join Club Spinistry. I guarantee you'll get your money's worth out of it and more. We're going to be adding a lot to the mix. Spread the word. But most importantly, please give us your feedback. If there's stuff you would like to see us do, or it's a type of adventure that you're looking for that doesn't make sense to build a 150-person event around, but maybe it makes sense to do a 15-person group thing around. We welcome your input and feedback too. Everybody tell Sassy good night. And I'm going to tell you all good night right now myself, and we're going to sign off.